Hey, what's going on? This is DK Smith tuning in for another book review. All right, today we're going to talk about one of my favorites, a classic. I read it a couple years ago. I try to read it every 18 months, every 2 years. I reread it. Some of the main points I highlight and underline all of my books and write in them. So I go and look at all my old notes. So I go back and then I read, my notes and what I was thinking and what I underlined, and how my world has changed versus when I first read these kind of books. But we're talking about 0 to 1, written by one of PayPal Mafia's own, Peter Thiel. He's a billionaire. Some of you have heard of him. If you haven't, Google him, listen to his story. He's one of the most incredible people we have in this country as far as businessmen goes, and he's an awesome person to listen to. That's why when he wrote this book, 0 to 1, Notes on Startups or How to Build the Future, right? It's funny because every word he writes is purposeful. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to take you all through a journey from like the beginning of the book, the middle of the book, and then towards the end of the book. My 5 favorite parts and quotes. I'm going to read them, talk about what I think they mean. Then hopefully you all pick up the book, read it yourself. And if you have the book, follow along with me. We have a little discussion, whether it's in the comments or you want to slide my DMs and ask me questions or whatever, or talk amongst yourselves. But all right, 0 to 1, let's get to it. Let's break it down. So this talks about what exactly does it mean to be 0 to 1? Like, what the hell is 0 to 1? Like, what does that even mean? All right. 0 to 1 is really all about creating new things that have never been done before. Right. He breaks it down in a very nice way. He talks about the difference between horizontal thinking and vertical thinking, and how horizontal thinking or extensive progress means copying things that work, going from 1 to N. And he uses the example of, you take one typewriter and build 100, you made horizontal progress. It's going from 1 to N. All you're doing is replicating something that's already out there. That's not real, it's not real progress. Yes, you may make some money. It's a good idea, you're scaling it, or you tweaked it a little bit, made it a little better, but you're not creating anything original. That's not 0 to 1, that's just, he calls it 1 to N, right? Just 1 to, any random number, because you're just taking something that already exists and maybe you're slightly improving it, or you're increasing the processes or whatever, right? But you're not creating anything brand new. Whereas going from 0 to 1, he calls that vertical or intensive progress. That means doing new things, right? Completely new things. Whereas you take a typewriter and you build a word processor, that's going from 0 to 1. That's that progress that will change the world and change the future and change how us as humans on Earth actually live, right? And vertical progress, or going from 0 to 1 is a lot harder than horizontal progress, because with vertical progress, you're doing something that no one else has ever done before, right? So that's like one of my first favorite parts of this book, where exactly defining what the hell is 0 to 1, and keep that in mind, as I take you all through the rest of the book, which would be, let's go to page 9, and it talks about, right on the bottom, the smartphones that distract us from our surroundings also distract us from the fact that our surroundings are strangely old. And for me, this one hit hard, because I was living in China or I just came back or something, and reading this, and I was like, wow, that is right, because in Shanghai, the technology is crazy. The high-speed trains are all brand new, and they're functional, and they're on time, which is unheard of in Manhattan, right? Because in Manhattan, nothing's really on time. The trains don't really run on time. They're old. If you all have ever rode the train, in New York City, what I'm talking about. And so, but we don't think about that, right? We're too busy glued to our phones, and we don't think about the world around us. And so this point hit really hard for me. Which kind of sets up for the rest of the book, and it really talks about, hey, let's stop building things that get us from 1 to N, and let's build new things that will create the future of transportation, the future of energy. But yeah, so let's keep moving. All right, on page 36, this is funny. and ironic actually. He talks about higher education, right, and students and ascending to the highest levels. He talks about higher education and being a student and ascending to the highest level. And I'll read you a direct quote. Higher education is the place where people who had big plans in high school get stuck in fierce rivalries with equally smart peers over conventional careers like management consulting and investment banking. For the privilege of being turned into conformists, students or their families pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in skyrocketing tuition that continues to outpace inflation. Why are we doing this to ourselves? Yeah, and he's not wrong. If you think about what college is, right? You are, and I believe I talked about this in another post or another video about how if you're going to go to college, have a definite plan as to why you want to go to college. Whether it's to be a lawyer or to be a doctor or something like that, where you actually need college and college is a prerequisite, then definitely. But it's funny to read this again. Hear him talk about conventional careers like management consulting, and investment banking, and yeah, if you go to these top business schools, you're competing with everyone else who wants to be, an investment banker or a management consultant at BCG, McKinsey, or Bain, who want to be investment bankers at JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, right, and Morgan Stanley. And if you're not at a top school, the competition is even harder. Right? And so it just makes you think about, what do you really want to do? Do you want to go into that career? Yes, it's high paying, but ultimately you're still working for someone else. Ultimately, you're still not going from 0 to 1, right? You're going from 1 to N. You're doing something. You're on the beaten path. But yeah, but that's what I took away from this, and then I think that's really strong and a really good point that everyone listening you should be thinking about. If you have kids going to college, you should be having these conversations with him or her. Or if you are in college yourself, be thinking about what's your end goal. But yeah, so moving on to my next little gem here in this book, 0 to 1. So page 54, he talks about, higher consulting. So think about, if you're in college, why, what's your long-term game, what's your end goal? And on the next page, on page 37, he has a quote where he says, "All Rhodes Scholars had a great future in their past." All right, and so for me, with that hit hard, because I take that with I think Janet Jackson sung that song, right? Like, what have you done for me lately? Right? Yeah, you're a Rhodes Scholar, and you're bright, or you have a scholarship, or you've been to the top school. Okay, but what's next? Right? No one really prepares us for what's after that. Right? After you go to a top school, after you get this management consulting position, after you become an investment banker at Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan or Morgan Stanley. Right? What next? Right? I mean, you're gonna go work in private equity? Are you gonna stay there and become a VP and an MD and a partner? Are you going to leave and get burnt out and go travel the world for 5 years? You should start thinking about that stuff now, because I'm telling you from experience, from what my friends are experiencing, no one prepares you for the 2 to 4 to 5 years into management consulting, investment banking, being a lawyer. So that's what this reminds me of when I think about 0 to 1. Anyway, moving on to page 54, where he talks about the perfect target market for a startup is a small group of particular people concentrated together and served by few or no competitors. Right? He mentioned earlier, the sentence before that, it's much easier to reach a few thousand people who really need your product than to try to compete for the attention of millions of scattered individuals. Right? And so, what does that mean to me? All right, for me, that says find your niche, find your target market, and if you can serve the majority of that target market with a product or a service that no one else is doing, you're effectively creating your own mini monopoly. Right? There is no competition at that point. Right? You're only serving this small subsect of people, not the millions. Don't worry about the millions. Don't try to say, oh, it's the $100 billion market and I only want 1%. No, it's not. No. You find out who really needs what you're offering, right? Who really needs that, because those people most likely are less price sensitive. And Peter Thiel goes on to say, cutthroat competition means your profits will be zero. And that's 100% true. In a perfectly competitive world, there are no profits, right? There's just not, because everyone's going to outbid each other. Everyone's going to, skim a little bit less here, a little bit less there. So your best bet is to create a small monopoly for yourself, whether you're an influencer and you have a brand, whether you are an artist and you have this unique ability to create art for a small subsect of people, but they're willing to pay a lot of money for that, or whether you're a business person, and you've mastered and you've cornered the market on some small niche. Maybe it's the new tax law, right? The 2019 tax code. Maybe you've read that, and every business is pretty much wants you, but find that subsection of people who really need that service that you can offer. And there won't be, I guarantee you, there will not be many people who are offering that similar service. So therefore, you will have a monopoly for a little while, right? Because the less competition, the better it is for you. With respect to this, obviously, the competition is good, and you want to be competitive with yourself and with your friends and in this world and the economy. But talking about this particular thing, which is the perfect target market for your startup, for your service, for your business, find a small group of people. All right, so that's our fourth point. Let's go to the fifth point. That's like my favorite. It's way in the back of the book on the last page. The book's only 195 pages long, so go ahead and check it out. It's not a very long read, but as I mentioned before, it's every word, every sentence is purposeful. And so take something out of it. Don't just skim through it. Actually, really read and study what he's saying. And I encourage you all to highlight or underline. I underline. I don't like highlighting. I think law school scarred me from all that highlighting stuff, but I just underline my books and write on the margins and scribble my notes and whatever. If you ever pick up my book, you probably will read like a LOL somewhere because I just write that. I don't know. So on the last page, he talks about the future, right? And what the future means. And he says the future won't happen on its own, right? And what that means is that it's up to us, right? We are literally creating the future by what we're doing right now, right? And the future is what's in our head, what we can imagine, right? And how you impact that is up to you, and up to your decisions that you're making today, right now. And he goes on to say, okay, he answers the question, how do you get from 0 to 1? Well, the first step, the essential first step is to think for yourself. Only by seeing our world anew, as fresh and strange as it was to the ancients who saw it first, can we both recreate it and preserve it for the future. And when I think about that, what can I do? What am I doing today, right now, that's going to preserve what we have, but also make it better and create something that's brand new, that's going to serve a totally different market, and how can I think about a definite future, right? Not up to chance. I'm not a lottery ticket. I'm not like just blowing in the wind. What I do is purposeful. What can I do today that's purposeful, that aligns with what I believe the future is going to be, based on these growth tailwinds, based on everything I'm reading about the markets, based on my prior knowledge and what I see going on. Right? And so with this, with me, with my brand, with my company, my law firm, my advisory firm, being a lawyer, being a management consultant, yeah, it's all cool. And of course, those two things aren't going from 0 to 1, but what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, I believe, will eventually one day change the way we do business and the way that small businesses and startups get served. And that's my, 0 to 1. That's what I'm betting it all against, because I see this future where, I'm able to really make a positive impact on it. And, hopefully you all get inspired. And, if this means that I get one person to go pick up 0 to 1 and read it and change their life, and now they are on a mission to go 0 to 1 like I am, the world will be that much better. Right? And there's a lot of more gems in here, and I don't want to take up too much of you guys' time, but yeah, this is, pick it up. I'm happy to discuss it. DM me, and you can follow me at mr_DK_Smith on Instagram. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can buy the book below. There's a link below. You can buy the book. If you're watching it on YouTube, if you're on Instagram, go to YouTube and go see the link. No, but I'll probably post a link in the bio or something to the YouTube video, so just check it out there. But yeah, 0 to 1, go cop it. All right, see y'all later.